kudos to the Wall Street Journal, by the way, for putting this story together. Let me just read you part of the opening here, and then I want to get into it with some thoughts. Men are abandoning higher education in such numbers that they now trail female college students by record levels. At the close of the 2020-2021 academic year, women made up 59.5% of college students, an all-time high, and men 40.5%, according to enrollment data from the National Student Clearinghouse, a nonprofit research group. U.S. colleges and universities had 1.5 million fewer students compared with 5 years ago, and men accounted for 71% of the decline. This education gap, which holds at both 2- and 4-year colleges, has been slowly widening for 40 years. The divergence increases at graduation. After 6 years of college, 65% of women in the U.S. who started a 4-year university in 2012 received diplomas by 2018, compared with 59% of men during the same period, according to the U.S. Department of Education. In the next few years, 2 women will earn a college degree for every man if the trend continues, said Douglas Shapiro, executive director of the Research Center of the National Student Clearinghouse. No reversal is in sight. Women increased their lead over men in college applications for the 2021-22 school year by nearly a percentage point compared with the previous academic year, according to Common Application, a nonprofit that transmits applications to more than 900 schools. Women make up 49% of the college-age population in the U.S., according to the Census Bureau. The data goes on and does a deep dive into what men are thinking and why boys are refusing to go to college. In some cases, it's as simple as teenage boys in high school lack the wherewithal and follow-through to keep up with everything and get the application done. Baylor University has launched a program, Men and Their Moms, and they send out emails to the moms to say, hey, tonight, make sure your son fills out this form to get his college transcript in from his high school and things like that. And they're seeing some improvement, but not overwhelming improvement. There's still improvement to be had. Now, you will not be surprised to learn that one of the impacts here, one of the ways in which the world is coming to clash with reality, is that progressives who have poured in identity politics for years do not like to help young men go to college. In fact, the gender enrollment disparity among nonprofit colleges is widest at private 4-year schools, where the proportion of women during the 2020 to 21 school year grew an average of 61%. Some of the schools extend offers to a higher percentage of male applicants, trying to close the gap between men and women. There has become in some schools tacit affirmative action for boys. And women's groups and feminists are upset about this. There's a societal problem here. And there's a larger problem we need to talk about. So I started listening to a podcast, and I can't really recommend the podcast anymore because of some of the philosophical objections I have to how they've covered things, and clearly the agenda running. But it was an interesting podcast at its start, and it still is interesting, and I need to finish it, but I don't endorse it. The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill. If you're unfamiliar with Mark Driscoll was a pastor, a Reformed pastor. He's still a pastor, no longer Reformed. Reformed pastor. Now, what's Reform? Well, in the theological lingo, Reformed is your Calvinist in your orientation. You embrace the tulips. And total depravity. I'm going to mess up if I go through them, and my Calvinist friends are going to get mad at me. I am a Reformed guy. The total depravity. I might as well, just for curiosity's sakes, tulip Calvinism. Why can't I remember them? Because I'm on too much allergy medicine this morning and my brain is suddenly broken. Total depravity, unconditional election, limited atonement, irresistible grace, and perseverance of the saints. Tulip. The theology of Calvinism. The acronym TULIP. If you subscribe to TULIP, you are considered Reformed. Now, there are some, for example, There's some Reformed Baptists don't go all along with some of it, but nonetheless, you get my point. Mark Driscoll, Reformed pastor, he's rejected Calvinism. That's where he made his stand. He's had a falling out with his church. He fell in disgrace. He couldn't not pastor a church, so now he's back and he's changed his theology. It's problematic, but for a while, now I've gone off on my own tangent, got myself lost. Here, I come back to the trail with this. One of the things that Mark Driscoll championed as a pastor that gets ridiculed in the Mars Hill podcast that shouldn't is the waywardness of men. Men in society have a role to play, and if you are a feminist and you believe that men and women are absolutely equal and you're egalitarian, there is a natural, it is in our DNA. Men and women are actually different. And I know that this bothers some people, but whether it's nature or nurture, it is the reality. Men and women actually are different, and they complement each other in their roles. A mother and father play different roles. A man in society generally wants to be in some way a protector, and they may do it in different ways. Some are strong and arm up, and they're going to fight for their family. Some work themselves to the bone and let their wife stay home with the family, but they all have different views of being a protector. Men in society need some level of guidance and care, and society itself has viewed men as dominant, and in the woke culture of the day and in the critical theory of the day, men are an oppressor class. They are a dominant class, and men as a species are bad. They need to be contained and constrained and feminized. And Mark Driscoll, as a pastor, was a pastor who come out and said, oh, hell no, we need men to be in charge. In fact, at his church, Mars Hill, they encourage women to stay home with the kids and men to work. And if you got to work 2 jobs to make ends meet so your family can keep up with the Joneses, not that you should be doing that. Men go work 2-3 jobs so your wife stays home and you make lots of babies, and one day you inherit the earth. Now, you may not like all of that. In fact, a lot of people don't. But the reality is that men need some level of guidance, and in so doing, with the guidance, men need to have some care placed on how they find their way in the world. Men need to have relationships with other men. And part of the off-putting portion of this is that society has idealized gay relationships, and I don't mean this don't hear me. I'm not disparaging it. I'm saying that we as a society have internalized that if you have a deep, meaningful relationship with a man, maybe you're 2 gay dudes and you don't even know it. We look at the story, for example, of Jonathan and David in the Bible, and a lot of people say, maybe they were actually closetly homosexual. No, they had a deep, meaningful friendship. And men need that, and they need some level of feeling like they're in control of their lives and destiny. They need to feel protective of others. You may not like this, but you do. Now, one of the problems here is that we're seeing this bro culture develop. We see it with the Proud Boys. We see it now I've got friends of mine, and I don't mean to disparage them or criticize them, but it's very this masculine Christianity now. We've lost the soft touch of Jesus, and we're back to the Jesus who throws punches. We've come back to where Mark Driscoll was with Mars Hill. In men need to learn to box. They need to go to the gym and throw medicine balls around, which I love to do, and I need to do more of it. But nonetheless, I hope you see my point that men have felt lost, and now these cultures are coming up to incentivize men to focus on the masculine nature of malehood through CrossFit, through exercise, through getting together with friends. And Driscoll's point when he was the pastor at Mars Hill was that men are either going to go off in porn or they're going to go off to God, and we need to cultivate men towards God and godly relationships because men are of a certain nature, behave in certain ways, and we all know it. And we're seeing this crop up again and again and again in society. Now, here's the problem, and this is where there intersects with college. A lot of men feel like college has become emasculating, and it is. And young men go off to college, and they're there for the good time and the parties. But of course, administrations have gone after the parties and the fraternities and the like. And part of the problem here is that they need a world, whether you like it or not, that helps men to be men, not to be emasculated men, but to be men. And a lot of college campuses went full down the road of we need to bring in more girls, and girls are at disadvantage, and girls are the ones we need to focus on. And now it's the guys who have fallen behind, the guys who don't have the guidance, the men in the world who are put down on. And a lot of these colleges went all in on feminism. They're like, I don't care. They brought it on themselves. It doesn't end well for society when you have a bunch of aimless young men living in their mother's basement without hope for the future. Eventually, they get together and they form organizations together, and they're either do a good for society or they do bad for society. At some point, you got to take men's role in society seriously. And you can't effeminate it. You can't feminize it. You can't degrade it. You can't say it's just like women. It is a completely different thing. At some point, you do have to have men to step up and take care. Men to be the police. Men to be the firefighters. Men to be the strong men on the oil rig. Men to be the men. And it should be a warning sign for our society, frankly, right now, that men are realizing that they can't get any of that from colleges. Now, you don't have to go to college to make a lot of money. You don't have to be a college degree. You don't have to have a college degree. If you want to do blue collar work as a plumber, as a roofer, you could make a good, comfortable living, and you could support your family. But also, we shouldn't turn college degrees into something negative, because people who get college degrees do tend to long-term have better, more stable income and better and more stable families. And as men are not going to college, it should be a warning sign for us for the future, for family stability, for the growth of families. And the fact that college campuses are where this data is being generated, where we see this, and those same college campuses can't actually wrap their minds around the fact that we need men to go to college, and it's not good for society when 2/3 of women have college degrees and only 1/3 of men have college degrees. You got a great disconnect. And people have taken the idea that we needed to help girls in the 1980s and turned it into a religious dogma that they're heretics for breaking down, and we should commend the schools like, for example, Baylor University, that has realized this is a problem, and we got to step up and help men now. You got to help men. Be men, not just be a masculine version of a woman.